Hello, everybody. Am I live? Like I like to say, I am live and I am alive, and I am so happy to be here. And as you come in, please say hello. Tell me that you're here. Tell me where you're tuning in from. Hello, Marina. I see you. Say hello as you come in because I don't always see who is coming in unless you comment. I am going to bring Elisheva Liss in 2 seconds. Aloha, salud. So happy to see you from San Diego this time. Jerry Wald, Marina from Virginia. Yay. Jerry, you're in Texas. I didn't realize you were in Texas. We're not that far away. That could be a drive. I could do that. Okay, guys, we are going to bring Elisheva in. I am so excited because it is a topic dear to my heart. And Elisheva is somebody who's very dear to my heart. I love powerful women. I love it so much. Women that they could rule the world, Women have this power. And I love when I see a woman like that, I want her around me. I like to soak up from their knowledge and the way they speak and the way they communicate. And Elisheva is one of these people. She speaks fast, pay attention, because you don't realize, but every word is brilliant. So without further ado, whoever is saying hello to me and it didn't sign up from StreamYard, I see you, but look how I see you as a Facebook user. Here is one, here is another. So that's why I say when you click the StreamYard button, then I can see you. Hi, Pam. Nice to see you. Okay. Elisheva Liss. Hello.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me. Nice to meet you guys.
Good. You see, I talk about who am I going to bring in when they are out and they can't say anything. I can say whatever I want.
Thank you so much for that very, very warm and beautiful introduction.
It's how I feel. I feel just so lucky. If you only knew. I'm like, I got her. I'm so excited.
You're so kind.
It's like one of those big gurus that you can never reach. That's how I felt.
We're all just human. We're all just flesh and blood. I want to tell you something. As you're telling me this, I'm reminded of a story that I wasn't specifically planning to share tonight, but it's actually a nice way to open up our talk tonight. I remember years ago, we were living in Israel as newlyweds, and we had a guest at our table, someone we don't know very well. It was a friend of a friend who just wanted a place to spend the Shabbat. And they came to us, and this young woman, college student, she complimented the food. I'm not a very good cook, but I guess she was hungry. And she had made this butternut squash pudding. And she said, "Oh, this pudding is delicious." And I said, "Oh, thanks." And she said, "Oh, I'm so glad you said thanks." And I said, "Why? Do people usually reject your compliments?" And she said, "No, but before we came to you, the other meal, we were at a rabbi's house, and every compliment that I gave her, my phone is falling. Every compliment that I gave these people, they would just say, 'Oh, thank God, thank God.' They didn't say thank you to the compliments." And she said, it was just nice and refreshing to hear someone just say thank you. So I said, now that I think about it, it could be the weird rabbi lady people were right. And she's like, "Oh, come on, really?" And I said, I'll tell you, because you said you like the food, but really, I didn't grow the squash, and I didn't even make up the recipe, and and I didn't give you taste buds. So really, if we're being, honest, and if we believe in the source, if we believe that everything comes from somewhere, and I'm not the original source of everything, then the correct answer is I'm glad you enjoyed the food, but I just played a small role in presenting it to you. And she's like, "All right, okay, I guess that makes some sense."
I like your explanation, but
yes, let's hear the but.
The messenger.
Yes.
The messenger was chosen to be the messenger.
Yes, and that's why a compliment feels good. I think that's the difference between arrogance and gratitude, is that if I believe that I have the privilege of being a good messenger, right? If I let's say I'm wearing this sweater, happens to be my daughter's sweater, right? Now, if you said, "Oh, you have that's a pretty sweater," I could say thank you. But if my daughter was sitting right next to me, the appropriate response would be like, "Oh, thanks, it's actually hers." Right? So, arrogance would be like, "Oh, I did everything myself, me." And that comes off as superior and self-centered. But gratitude is kind of like, "Oh yeah, I'm so glad to be able to wear it. I mean, I didn't make it. The people at Target made it. I just bought it." Right? So, so I think that a nice part of gratitude is being able to, on the one hand, acknowledge and enjoy and appreciate the role that I play in whatever it is that's being, complimented or enjoyed or admired, but also to have balance that with the humility of recognizing that everything is a group effort when it comes down to it, and if you believe in God, which not, everyone does, but there's certainly like a universal energy and element that runs the world that, there's stuff out there, if I made some delicious food, I couldn't have done that without the earth producing the ingredients to make that, to offer that to me. But anyway, so I just thought that was cute.
I think it's great. And at the end of the day, everything comes to God. And so that is a great lead to the very difficult question, because tomorrow is Thanksgiving. I'm a foreigner. I had to apologize. I left a message to my group before earlier, and I said, I'm Brazilian. I don't cook Thanksgiving. I don't do Thanksgiving. I practice Thanksgiving every day. We have plenty of holidays. I don't need another one, So I hope that people didn't get offended. But whatever, the original story, I'm there,
The sentiment is there, even if not.
The sentiment is there. It's just like, it's one less time for me to cook.
Yeah.
But it is a day. It is a day that you stop and you're grateful a little bit more. Like you pay attention, even though we try to live in gratitude every day. I have a whole chapter about it in my book. I mean, everybody talks about gratitude, an attitude of gratitude. But what really is an attitude of gratitude? What does that mean? And how can we be grateful during times of pain, during trials and tribulations? And now I don't think that there has been another time in recent years that we can all say that we're all going through something. I mean, this phase is difficult in so many aspects, right? Financially, it's affecting us. Health, it's affecting us. Loneliness. So many people are alone tomorrow. How is somebody who is alone at home, is immunocompromised, is having his meal by himself, how can he be grateful and mean it? So that's the conversation of today. I wanted to hear your perspective on it. And obviously, we'll take questions from everybody. I'll say how I feel about it. Go ahead, Alicia.
Okay, so the question starts with the assumption that the person, in fact, wants to feel grateful, right? And that's a really important foundation, because everything starts from a place of wanting, right? Like everything begins with a thought, begins with an idea. And then that kernel of an idea has to get watered and nurtured and blossom. But I think it has to begin with a person saying, I want to feel thankful on this day, even if I'm feeling lonely, even if I'm feeling sad. Because if a person doesn't want to, then they're not ready for that, And so I think that I remember once I was speaking to somebody that I had thought of as a mentor at that time in my life, and I was feeling a little bit down. And I was feeling guilty about feeling down because I had a lot to be grateful for. And I said, I don't know why I'm not feeling happy. I mean, I'm so grateful. I have so much going on. And she looks at me and she goes, Alicia, but what does grateful have to do with feeling happy? And to me, the way I was raised and educated, it's like, it's almost synonymous, gratitude leads to happiness. And, but what I realized was that I was skipping a step, and she was kind of right. And in order to really, I think it was Golda Meir who said, the people who can cry with a whole heart can laugh with a whole heart, right? And so sometimes people are so motivated to rise above and be, and put that smile on their face and see the good, and it's all good, it's going to be okay. But there's a fatigue that comes with doing that all the time. And if it doesn't feel authentic, then part of the journey to gratitude involves crying those tears, and to be able to say, I miss my loved ones. I miss my health. I crave, you know, certain blessings, and I'm not talking about the extra blessings, but the basic blessings of you know, health and people that we love around us, and the ability to function and go out in the world, and the relative sense of safety and security that you can go out in the world and not contract a life-threatening illness on a regular basis. You know, so to begin with that step of saying, you know what, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel those feelings. And if I, in fact, want to lead myself to a healthier, happier place psychologically, then the less pretty neat feelings have to be part of that process. And so to sort of have a good cry and feel it out, and maybe do some journaling, write it out and say, like, this is hard. This is hard. And hard doesn't mean bad. You know, hard is what makes us strong, and it gives us, you know, resilience and depth and appreciation and perspective, and the desire to, you know, live more deeply and fully. But in the hard, we could feel the hard, and we can cry, and we can say all the curse words and do all the things we need to do to, like, to access that piece of our humanity. And I think when a person, you know, it's almost like paradoxical, but when a person gives him or herself permission to go there, with, especially with the intent of, like, I don't want to be here forever, but this is a step that I need to go through. I have to kind of walk through this water in order to get to the other shore. Then when you get there, it's a transcendence. You know, it's a feeling of, like, I did that. I felt my pain. I did the hard. And then the joy that comes from that is a mature, transcendent, nuanced kind of appreciation. It's not like, you know, I kind of contrast it with, like, a little child, like a baby laughing. You know, if you ever watch, like, a toddler or a baby laughing, it's so pure. It's such an innocent, you know, carefree sound, because they're carefree. They're free of cares. They don't worry. They're all in that moment. It's a belly laugh, and all they're feeling is joy. But the older you get, and the more you experience life, and the more we see and bear our own trials and tribulations, and feel with empathy and compassion the pain of what's out there in the world, the joy goes from that, like, sort of pure, innocent, childlike joy to a more mature, nuanced, multifaceted, multicolored kind of connection. And it's more precious, it's more rare, because babies can laugh at anything. You know, babies, it's so easy to make them laugh. You know, you punch, you know, point their belly and they're cracking up. You know, they think it's hysterical. You know, but an adult who's been through things and seen things and cried and prayed and sat with people who've known tragedy, for that person to come to a place of smiling and laughing and feeling in the moment again, that's an accomplishment. That's an achievement. You know, and it's a different kind of pleasure. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So in a way, if I understand you correctly, there's going to be pain. There's going to be feeling of pain, even tomorrow, even during the holiday season. And it's okay. And people need to allow themselves that space and those feelings. And it's part of life. And it's a necessary part in order for them to move on when they're ready.
If they're feeling pain, you know, if they're feeling pain.
Right.
If they're not, there's no obligation to.
100%, 100%. But can they use the concept of being grateful and looking within the mess? There are, you know, bright moments. There are special things that they're gifted, to look for them on purpose. Because and when I say on purpose, I mean, like, being really intentional.
Yeah.
I have this practice that I write in the morning, 5 things that I'm grateful for, but I am not allowed to write. This is a rule that I set for myself. I'm not allowed to write any of the obvious. I can
like health and children and things like that, right?
Right, not allowed to. So what happens is that I know that tomorrow morning I get up and I start my morning ritual at around 8 o'clock in the morning, and it goes till 9. So I know that at 8 o'clock in the morning, I have to have 5 things that happened to me the day prior that I'm grateful for. So what happens is it forces me the previous day to be paying attention and making a note in my head, because tomorrow, if I don't think about it today, tomorrow I'm going to be sitting and I could, you know, you forget the small blessings of the day. But the reality is that if we really stop to think about our days in general, we are surrounded by amazing things that happen that go well. It's just that we take those things for granted. If you really stop and make it a point to look for every beautiful things that happen in your life, it starts to balance the pain also. You start seeing, okay, it's not all bad, but we very easy, it's almost like we see in general, we see everything that goes right, that's how it should be. And
take
everything
it for granted. Yeah.
yeah, and then everything that goes bad, that why me? Why did I have to go through that? So what do you think about that? What do you think about
I want to start by responding to the last thing you said, because it just reminded me of something that I once heard, that expectations are basically a recipe for disappointment. And that kind of fits with what you were just saying, is that if I expect I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to have all my limbs intact and my house is still going to be standing and there's going to be food in my fridge and all of the stuff that we just sort of take for granted because it's always been that way, if I expect that and then it turns out that I have some pain, or there's something rotting in my fridge, or any of those things wasn't the way I expected it to be, it's like, excuse me, I didn't get the service I ordered. What happened here? And so that's a recipe for frustration and disappointment. And so when I've said that to people, sometimes they say, so what, am I supposed to live in constant anxiety that everything's going to fall apart around me? And I said, no, there's a difference between hopes and expectations. Expectations is, it's coming to me. That's what I paid for it. I'm supposed to have it. Right. Hopes are, I want to keep my hopes high, right? I hope everything will go smoothly today. I hope that, everything will be as stable as I left it yesterday. But my expectation is that stuff sometimes goes wrong. That it happens in everybody's life, right? And so, so I love that you wove in that notion of the perspective that you begin with, because it makes all the difference in the world. If someone gives me a check for $100,000, right, I would probably be very happy, right? Unless the deal in our contract said they were supposed to give me $150,000, then I would be really annoyed, right? So it's not the amount of money in the check that makes me, appreciated, or happy, grateful for it or not. It's what my expectation was. If the deal was they owed me $150, then excuse me, something's missing, right? But if it was, I didn't expect any money that day, it was just a windfall, then I'm like, wow, what a great day, right? Yeah. So that was the first.
So true, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, wow, I expected to be able to travel. I expected. It wasn't like it's not that I hoped. I expected that I was going to do A, B, and C, and my plans got ruined because of this bug,
Totally.
Yeah, very good. Go ahead.
We get so annoyed because we didn't order this bug. It was not on our agenda.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. What was the other thing you were going to say?
So just remind me, because I'm trying to remember what you said before that. Do you remember the point that you made before that?
How I look for the whole day that I look.
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. So I love that example. It's funny because I'm a couples therapist. I see individuals also, but a lot of my clients are couples. And one of the exercises that I recommend to almost every couple that I work with that's working on their emotional relationship is, I'll say, 5 minutes every day. Try to find a 5-minute slot every night, ideally when you're both home, awake, and unlikely to be disturbed by your kids, right? And put your devices somewhere else and spend 5 minutes sharing something that is not business for the house, meaning nothing about, did we pay that bill? Did we take care of that thing for that child? Did we, call the contractor about that, fix that they need to do? Nothing that's business as usual. Only things like, I read such an interesting article. I heard such a funny story. I saw a hilarious meme, something that they're sharing just to nurture the friendship. And I always tell people exactly what you just said, which is, not only does it create a precious space of 5 minutes where you're being best friends with your partner, but it also causes you to think of your partner all day long, because you know that you're going to have a little date later and you want to have something to share. That's good. So all day long, you're like, oh, I have to remember to tell my spouse that. Oh yeah, that's what I'm going to tell them later, and so it keeps you aware. So it's almost kind of like, what you just described, the going through your day looking for gratitude points, is this. It's like nurturing your romantic relationship with the universe. Kind of.
Love it. It's so, and you know that I'm a romantic.
Yeah. So nice. It's so nice. Yes. You're also a very, very strong person. And we talked about this last time we had the opportunity to chat. I think it was on Instagram last time. But something that you had said that I thought was fascinating was that you did not grow up in America.
Right.
And in America, and I think some of European countries also, there is more of a movement of embracing the sadness and validating and normalizing the low feelings. Whereas you have internalized and in turn cultivated and spread more of a resilience message of saying, it's hard, it hurts. Yes, I'm not going to pretend that everything is easy if it's not, but that flexing that gratitude muscle is a value, and I think that that's where you come to be a kind of person who almost, I don't want to say embraces, because that's a strong word, but embraces the opportunity to look at something painful and say, let me see what I can be grateful for.
I have to tell you something. I am fascinated about the ability of the human spirit for growth.
Yeah.
It fascinates me.
Yeah.
I've seen now, my husband had a stroke. I think you know that, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And then since then, I became very involved with the stroke community. And there's a lot of either stroke survivors or stroke caretakers in my group. And I see people, Paul Cummings, Lynette, Jerry, who's here tonight, they lost the ability to speak, read and write. They had no way to communicate, and they worked really hard, and it's fascinating to me, the ability of a human being when there is desire to mend that brokenness. It's like kintsugi all over again. Everywhere I go, I see kintsugi. I'm a visual learner, so I need that. For me, it all makes sense, and it comes together. But I love challenges. I like to challenge myself professionally. I like to challenge myself in talents, in studying, and learning, and drawing, and I like to grow. I really like to grow, and I think that when you, it's a choice, right? Was it just a mess? Did my life get messed up, or is it a challenge? And let's see what I can make with this. Can I make something better? But I agree with you that the kintsugi, you have to honor the break. You have to find the pieces. You have to work with the broken pieces.
Highlight it. You're not hiding from it. It's this part that jumps out.
Correct. They have to find even where do they reconnect. The process of kintsugi is so fascinating, and it teaches that, you have to sit in the brokenness. It takes time. Even before you glue it, you have to sit in the brokenness. Yeah. But then when you start seeing the possibilities, and I think that the possibilities is such a big part of gratitude. When you see what's possible, you are grateful even before you attained it, just for the mere fact that maybe you could attain it. I don't know. I see, to me, is like the possibility of who I can become. I'm already grateful for that. I didn't even attain it yet, but I could work hard at it because I've seen others. And that's why I bring speakers to the group that went through a lot, because every time I talk to one of them, I see what humanity can do. That's why I call them heroes, because when I see their strength after so much pain, wow. And then also, everything, everything is wonderful. If a car didn't hit me, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm well, that I'm home. I'm not in a hospital right now. There's so much to be grateful for.
1,000%. I came across, there are two people that both have the first name Nick. Mm-hmm. And they're pretty well known. Maybe you've come across their videos. One of them is named Nick Vujicic. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
Isn't he phenomenal?
Oh, they're both no arms and no legs.
Yes.
Both of them. Yes.
Both of them. They're both quite well known. Both of them, I think, went through a stage where they were really down. I think one of them said he was even suicidally depressed at a certain point in his life. And they took what most people would view as the ultimate handicap, like the ultimate limitation, and turned it into the platform for becoming the ultimate inspiration. You know, and I think that those are the kinds of stories that really light people's souls on fire. You know, in terms of there's every good story, like the storyline of a movie or a good book, it's the hero's journey. It's like there's something going on, then there's an obstacle, there's a challenge, there's suspense, there's fear, like, oh no, is the person going to make it? Are they going to succumb to whatever's going on? And then in the good stories, there's a redemption. You know, there's some sort of figuring out, oh, I transcended, I can do this, I learned something new, I acquired a new skill. And, you know, that sounds like a little, you know, easier and prettier said than done, but that's why that's why books are hundreds of pages long and movies are a few hours long, because it's not that simple, you know. You know, but I think did you read the book, the book The Choice by Dr. Edith Eger?
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
I read The Choice and The Gift.
And The Gift. Oh my gosh, The Gift I bought myself as a gift. For those of you who aren't familiar with this book is a must read. It's an autobiographical story of a woman who went through the Holocaust. That's her second book. Oh, it's so wonderful. She's a psychologist, I think in San Diego, somewhere in California.
San Diego.
And she had gone through Auschwitz. She had gone through the Holocaust. And she was young. It was rare. Usually they would kill children and teens, but she was talented. She was a gymnast and a ballerina, and they kept her alive to entertain the Nazis. She danced for Mengele. And she made it through this nightmare, holding on to the hope that she would be reunited with her boyfriend, who died days or weeks before the liberation. And then she ended up emigrating to America. She married another survivor of the war, established a very successful career as a trauma psychologist. Never talked about her experiences, really sort of just put them in a box in her brain, raised a family, cultivated a career, brilliant, talented woman. In her 80s, she got to this point where she's like, if I don't tell my story now, then eventually it's going to die with me. And she didn't want that to happen. So she wrote it up. I can't imagine she ever anticipated the renown that she encountered. And she didn't, right? It was really just a personal project, right? She was really so she wrote this book, and it blew out, it blew up, because she has this gift. I was raised in a Jewish community. I went to Jewish schools. There was a lot of Holocaust education, a lot, probably too much. And I don't appreciate usually reading Holocaust stories, simply because they're devastating. You know, it's very, very upsetting to read what humanity is capable of and what people suffered. But reading this book, it's not a Holocaust story. It's a story of human triumph and survival and resilience and wisdom that's gained by a person. And that's why she called it The Choice, because she made a choice. She said, I could drown in my trauma, right? And she doesn't pretend to be not traumatized. She still suffers from PTSD symptoms to this day. But she's like, I could let that define me and overtake me. Or I could, kind of stick my tongue out at it and just say, you know what, that's not how I want to be identified forever and ever. And she used her pain, she used her experiences to figure out how to help others with their trauma. And one of the most powerful messages that she says, which I think is really a gift to hear from anyone who's been through something that we would call a real trauma, as opposed to micro trauma, like littler things, is that when she's working with someone whose trauma was they were in a car accident, meaning they had a happy, healthy, safe life, and then there was a car accident that was nobody's fault, and there were injuries, and they are healing. And it's almost like they'll say to her, how could you even feel bad for me? You went through real things. I didn't go through real things. And she said, it's all the same nervous system. It's pain, it's receptors, it's processing, it's cognitive, it's spirituality, it's rumbling, it's fighting with God, it's fighting with our own feelings and responses. It's the back plot of the story is secondary to the universal human process of how we integrate the pain into our own experience, narrative, wisdom, and what we do with it next. And she can say that because she's been through the worst things that people could ever go through.
But you know what? I always say the worst pain is the one that we're feeling.
Yeah, that's exactly.
The worst pain is my pain at the moment that I feel the pain.
Yes.
So there's no comparison. I remember I've been interviewing thrivers for almost 3 years now.
Awesome.
And one woman, she read her story, and then after she interviewed with me, she went to read all the other stories that I had written. And she said, I'm embarrassed about my story because my story is not as bad as any of these other stories. And I said, there is no competition. There's no contest. There's no comparison. And you lived that life. That was your package. That was your test. Your test is the worst test because that's the one that you're experiencing, right? We're not going in your goodness, the goods that you get. Those are your happy moments. Also, not something that's good for me may be a nothing for somebody else whose life has a gazillion blessings more than me. But I noticed one thing. And I wanted your opinion on that. I noticed that when I'm very intentional with what I'm grateful for,
yeah,
and when I intentionally give it to God, and I say, it's painful. You're going to make a decision what needs to happen. If you want it to be like that, I will accept it and I'll deal with it, and I'm not going to put up a fight. When I'm living in that kind of mentality, more good things happen to me. Like I get more blessings. When I am living more, when I pay attention to gratitude, I feel like I'm showered with good things. I don't know if I am getting more things really because it's attracting, the law of attraction. I'm living joyfully, then more joy is coming, or it's because I'm just every time getting better at paying attention at the good things that the world bring me. But today something happened, and it was so interesting because I got a shipment from Portugal. It was 7 boxes. 6 came, one box was lost, and it was a big deal. The whole box, the whole content belonged to a client. It wasn't even my stock. And I didn't know what to do. The holidays are coming. We wouldn't have time to do more fabric, and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm calling UPS, and I have to tell you, in the past, before I started really working on myself, I would have been livid. I would have been calling UPS and screaming, angry. I would be saying to them, you have one job to take box from point A to point B. That is your business. How can you lose one box of 7 that we were together, right? I would have been upset. This time, I said to myself, you know what? It's a blessing that I even have this customer. It was a gift that I even got. It was really incredible how I got this customer. And it's such a blessing. And if God gave me, God will take it away. It's his choice, right? And I just have to accept.
It's not up to me. I call those moments of surrender. When we unclench our fists and say, oh, wait, I'm not the boss of it. I'm not in control of everything. I can make my efforts, but I do it with serenity, not with a need to control.
Right. And then I said to myself, you know what? 6 boxes came. 1 got lost. I'm going to be grateful for the 6 that came. Okay. And then I surrendered exactly as you said. I called UPS one more time. They told me the box is lost. We will get back to you within 8 business days. Not a good sign. 3 hours later, the box shows up on my door.
Amazing.
If you go to the website, it still says
that it's in transit or something.
Yeah, it's still like a yellow thing, looking for it and so on. Like they don't know where it is. But I felt that when the box came, it was God telling me,
see, good. Let go, I'll take care of stuff.
You did good. You did good. You passed the test. So here's another blessing for you. That's how I feel.
That's a great story, Mary, but I want to interject something. The fact that I knew you were going to say that the other box showed up because it just felt like that's where the story was leading. But even if the other box hadn't shown up, you already had the gift of serenity in your heart. Yes. Because you know what I mean? Like there would have been fallout with that client. You would have been financial loss, but all of that stuff can be recovered. Mental health is the most precious. Physical health, mental health, relationships. Those are the precious assets that we need to protect more than, the financial. When we go to a client and we say, I'm so sorry, I put in the order, but something went wrong along the way. I want to make it right. So a good client will understand that and you'll recoup. So it's like what you said before. You don't know whether you're actually attracting more tangible blessing or you're just experiencing the blessing that you have more abundantly. But that's the beauty. It doesn't even matter.
Exactly. exactly. It didn't matter, but it was the timing of everything. I
It's
felt
miraculous when that there used to be a book series, Small Miracles. It was like one of those small
Jack
miracles.
Canfield.
I
Yes.
have like a deeper example of a similar dynamic. I remember, you mentioned your husband had a stroke. I probably told you this. My husband had cancer. Not that this is not like a whose husband had bad stuff happen to them discussion, but I hope your husband's doing okay. And thank God my husband's been well for a while now. But when we were very young, I was in my 20s, he was in his early 30s. And out of the blue, he had been in good health and he got diagnosed with stage 3 stomach cancer, adenocarcinoma. It was very, very scary. And for a while, like it wasn't looking good. And I had 3 kids and I was pregnant. Like he was diagnosed in the middle of my pregnancy with my 4th. And it was just crazy times. And 2 things. Number one, I totally relate. That moment of surrender was something that I experienced because I remember I was working so hard. I was working in the morning. I was in grad school in the afternoon, and I had these tiny children. My kids were all under the age of 10, and and it was hard. There wasn't a lot of money in those years. We were still, getting started, and everything just felt so wildly scary and out of control. And I was praying so hard, and I was like directing a lot of my energy into prayer because it honestly felt like all I could do because I wasn't an oncological surgeon. I'm still not. And at one point he was in the hospital and I was, exhausted and hormonal, and it was so hard. And I was praying. I remember it was Hanukkah time. And I was praying into my prayer book and I was crying. And finally, I just kind of looked up. I want to say at God, but it was really my cracked ceiling. And I looked up and I was like, God, I give up. You win. Like clearly the intensity of my mountain moving prayers is not going to determine what happens next. So I'm going to pray from a place of humility. And it didn't stop me badgering the doctors. It didn't stop me, going to speak to, everyone that I could to advocate for his care. I still went and did everything that I needed to do, to take care of my family, to support him. But I did it more from a place of like, I'm not in charge of keeping him alive. And, and I also thank God had a happy ending to that story. He recovered, so grateful for that. But that moment of letting go was a salvation for me, of recognizing that, hey, I'm really not the boss. Fast forward a few years later, that baby that I was pregnant with, so she came home, she was in preschool. And she was baking. She was at my counter and she was making a grand old mess and baking and trying to be a good mom by not like helping. She was trying to pour something that there was no way she was going to get it right. It was for sure going to end up all over my counter and the floor. And I said, do you want some help with that? And she looks at me and she says, no, I can do it. And I said, okay, let me know if you want some help. And she looks at me with like the sweetest innocence and she says, it's okay, because I'll do my best and God does the rest. And I was like, I hadn't taught that to her. I wish I could take the credit, but she must have picked it up in preschool. I was like, where'd you learn that from? And she said, oh, my teacher read us a story. And the like refrain of the story was, we do our best and God does the rest. I'm like, if you learned nothing else in school this year and you take that with you in life as a lesson, I'll just do my best. And the rest is up to, whatever happens, God's there. That's enough.
And you know what? When you do that, I think that you're able to find the blessings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because so maybe I'm loving this conversation because maybe the source of gratitude is surrendering to the higher power of whatever it will be. Receive it, with open arms and try to see that there has to be a blessing in disguise, even in the adversity, even in you can cry and you can suffer and you go through that process, but ultimately maybe there is a good reason. I know that when I look back at who I was 10 years ago and who I am today, I wouldn't want to go back to be that person of 10 years ago. I'm really happy and proud of the growth that I have made in the last 10 years. But I wouldn't have attained that if I didn't have the life that I had, right? It was engineered for me.
It's kind of like everything you went through led to where you are today. Do you know that song Broken Road?
Sing it.
I set out on a narrow way many years ago, hoping I would find true love along a broken road, right? Because God blessed the broken road that led me straight to you. That's the chorus, you know. So and it's broken, like Kintsugi, you know, like the brokenness of the road. Like if that person who was singing, I think it's Rascal Flatts, you know, if he hadn't had all these heartbreaks, he wouldn't have ended up with the love that he's singing to. You know, and there's something about that, like all of those painful sort of experiences that we had to go through led us to where we are today. Did we ask for them? No. You know, would we wish them on anyone? No. You know, we wish only good things on people. But once we've been through them, we have a choice, you know, and we can just live with the regret and the resentment, or we could say, once I had to go through that, you know, it's funny. There's something that a lot of people say, which I know doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work for me, and it doesn't work for a lot of people, to say everything happens for a reason. So it doesn't, that phrase doesn't, I respect people for whom that resonates. And I think maybe they have greater faith than I do. But for me, I feel like, you know, if I just say, well, everything happens for a reason, and I look at things that seem so cruel and so, you know, out of order, to say everything happens for a reason, it almost feels like, okay, so God is like mean and sadistic. Like, how does that help me feel better? So what I prefer to say is, we can make reasons and purpose out of almost everything that happens. Right. And I don't put that pressure on someone else, because I don't know their pain. I only know my pain. Right. But I say to me, what can I do? What can I look at what I'm going through? Another example from that time period is about 1.5 years that we went through the cancer, you know, story. One of the moments that stands out for me, it was like a very, you know, it was such a simple moment, but I'm still like, sometimes I tear up to this day when I tell this story. I have a very dear friend. We've been friends since we're 14 years old, since 9th grade. And I know her family, like we grew up, you know, together, and I spent time with them. And her mother is like a sweetheart of a lady. And her mother called me when my husband was in the hospital, and she said to me, Elisheva, why don't you pack up your kids and move into my house? And I was like, what? I have a family, you know, I have parents, thank God. They didn't invite us. They knew my kids too well. No. So this woman says, come move into my house. I said, what are you talking about? Why? And she said, you know, you're working so hard. I see, you know, you're teaching in the morning, you're in graduate school, you're pregnant. She's like, you're in a small apartment. I have a whole basement. I have a backyard. You know, my grandchildren are always here coming to play. It'll be so much fun for your kids. Just come. You won't have to cook. I'll take care of you. I lost it. I just burst into tears. You know, that kind of goodness, that kind of generosity of spirit, you know, the number of lasagnas we got that year. We live in a very close-knit, vibrant Jewish community. And for those of you who don't know what that's like, Jews send food. Someone dies, you get food. There's a baby, food. Bar mitzvah, wedding, food. Anything happens, you will get food.
Look at me.
Sorry, you look beautiful.
I eat it. I eat all that is delivered. No self-control.
But am I wrong? Like, how much food did you get when your husband was sick?
Oh my God, no! But thank God, you know what? My husband had a stroke over the holidays, so thank God everybody delivered, because you know my husband didn't eat any of that, and
sure, of course, yeah.
neither did I, because I was trying to, you know, give him company and eat food without salt, so he wouldn't feel so bad. So I still had to cook, but for my kids, it was such a blessing.
So helpful, yeah.
When I look back at all of the help, you see also who your friends are. You know, there are, those are also blessings. You know, when you get to see the people who are siblings by choice, you know, family by choice.
Yes,
that is a huge blessing.
For sure. One of our, actually, I'm just putting this together right now as we're talking, one of our closest family friends was actually someone, we had known each other like through carpools and, you know, different things but the way that we really became very close and we ended up traveling together for years, making beautiful memories with this family, spending holiday meals together, was a guy in the neighborhood who's self-employed. Like, he's got his own business, so he makes his own hours. Like, he just works for himself. And he heard that my husband had to go into the city, however many times a week it was, for chemo treatments. And we about a 45-minute to an hour drive. Parking, you know, is hard, and I couldn't always take him. So our friends set up a rotation of people who would drive him. So he couldn't drive himself, and this guy had a lot of available time to take him. So they became really close friends, and then his wife and I became really close friends, and our kids became close friends, and you know, that's a friendship that really evolved, probably primarily because of that, you know, and that was a very special, you know.
And isn't that a blessing that came from a period of time and a period of trial and tribulations?
Yes.
So right now we're we're going through a tough time, through
Yeah.
a tough time. Just the world, even if a person is not affected, you understand that the whole world is suffering.
I don't think it's possible to not be affected. I always say, like, I mean, look, maybe there's exceptions, but we homeschooled. I know you homeschooled your kids too. We homeschooled before COVID. I worked out of a home office before COVID. Like, I have, thank God I have a backyard, I have a basement, I have space. I'm not cooped up. My kids are not tiny little kids that need my attention and are out of school. Everything that people that I know are struggling with, thank God, in my life is not a variable because of the way our lives are set up now. I still feel it. I still wake up in the morning and wonder, like, are people okay? How many admissions to the ER were there today? How many people are coughing and having panic attacks because they don't know if it's just a regular allergy cough or that, like, you can't, it's literally in the air, and it's psychologically in the air. And it really challenges us, it forces us to say, like, am I going to drown in this, or am I going to use it as a catalyst for something?
Yeah. You know what? It's very interesting because I'm an introvert. And I on a regular basis, I'm a lot at home and I'm a lot on my computer, and I am a workaholic. So my life didn't change so much as far as that. But you know what? I really miss hugging people.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I'm also an introvert. And at first, like, I was making jokes about, like, oh, it's so great, I have an excuse never to have to leave the house and get dressed, and I don't have to go to, weddings and parties anymore. This is like what I've been dreaming of, other than, obviously I want everyone to be well, but like the lifestyle change is personality. And then I was somewhere and I saw someone who obviously wasn't being very careful about COVID. We've been following all the rules, but not everyone always is. And she just came up to me and jumped on me. It's my friend's, another friend's, a friend of mine's younger sister who's an adult. And she comes up to me and she gives me this huge hug. And it's funny, I'm not usually a very touchy-feely person, but it was such a good feeling. And I was like, I haven't hugged anyone outside of my family in 8 months.
And I have to tell you, I always say like that. I gained a lot of weight in the last bunch of years, especially with COVID. And I have a choice, right? Should I be upset that I gained the weight or find the positive in it? Yeah. So I always said the positive is that my hugs are super soft.
I love it.
But I'm not banking on it. That's not fair. I want to, if I'm already fat, might as well hug everybody. So in Brazil, we kiss, on the cheeks.
It's cultural, yeah.
It's very cultural. And as it is, when I moved to the US, I had to kind of cool it because people,
I'm weirded out. It's like, stop kissing all the neighbors, Mary. Yeah.
Do you know them? No.
Not yet.
What's their name? No idea. You just kissed them. This is what we do, and I miss it. I see that I need it. I need that.
Everyone needs human connection. Everyone needs human connection. The degree and the amount and the way of doing it. But hugs release oxytocin. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. And and one of the things that I do with my clients, particularly ones who are either going through challenging times or suffering from anxiety or depression or other problems that affect mood, is to say, write out what you're feeling, write out what you're dealing with the way it is. And then take a minute, take a deep breath and say, how would I like to be relating to this reality? How do I want to feel about this? Not in a phony, positive thinking, everything's going to be okay no matter what kind of way, but in a realistic, authentic, in your own words, in your own language, with your own sarcasm and sense of humor, make it real for yourself. But like the healthiest, most hopeful version of me, what would that look like? And I call it your horizon of healthy thinking. That's what my book is about. Thank you. And
this is for anybody who wants more of Elisheva, you can find it on Amazon.
We promise we're not selling anything.
We don't sell anything. You gifted me this book a while back, right? And I read it in one sitting. And I did not tell you that I was going to have it here, but I have my special books with nearby.
Thank you. And to me, I actually learned that in my own experience, that sometimes I have a very dramatic brain. And if I'm going through something, it'll come up with these very powerful, strong, visual, almost like I'm writing a drama in my own head. And it could be a dramatic thing that's going on. But even when you're telling the story of a drama, we pick the words, whether we catastrophize it or we empower ourselves with it. And And when I learned that, when I realized, but through, researching neuroplasticity and narrative therapy and a whole bunch of things that I do for work, but really just through challenging my own negative mindset sometimes, and the fact that sometimes I can be kind of grumpy in here, and recognize that it's not as hard as one might think to get out of that rut. To say, like, if I'm below that line, below that horizon of healthy thinking, it's not because of something that's going on external to me. It may have been triggered by that, right? That was the challenge. But every moment of the day, there's someone out there suffering more than I am and handling it better than I am. And I don't use that as a way to shame myself. I use that as a way to motivate myself and to say, like, I have three different possibilities here. I could just lick my wounds and feel sorry for myself, and I'm free to do that. Anyone's free to do that. That's, it's a free world. You can do that if you want, but it doesn't feel good to live in that space, right? I can just sort of shrug my shoulders and say, well, it is what it is, and kind of like let it be what it is. And that's fine too. And sometimes that's the right answer. But I try personally as much as possible to encourage myself and my clients, if they want it, to rise above that horizon of healthy thinking, not to say like everything's fine if it's not fine, but with whatever's going on, where can I find that pinprick opportunity to grow, to be productive, to be contributive, to learn something, to make this mean something, right? Even if I don't know what the objective, big picture, God's eye meaning of it is, what can I do to make this story not be a waste of my time?
And I think that gratitude helps a lot to bring you up above that horizon line, right?
Totally. One of the things that I struggled with the concept of gratitude is that I felt like I was confusing it with guilt. I remember a couple of years ago, my daughter read a book, a really nice book. It's called I Will Always Write Back. And it was a story about a young woman, a girl in her like middle school, who was matched up on a pen pal program with a boy in Zimbabwe. And she ended up sending him a dollar bill just to say, oh, this is the currency in America. And he was able to like feed his whole family for a week on that, something like that, And she realized how much poverty he was living in because he wasn't complaining. But then she got an idea of he was sleeping on dirt. Didn't have enough food. He was dropping out of school because there wasn't money to pay for school. And she realized that she could just send him some of her babysitting money and change his family's life. And it started a long-term friendship where she made a huge difference in the life of this boy, in the life of his family, and him being going on to get higher education and help his village, because two teenagers reached out to one another. And so it's a beautiful story. If you have, adults could read it. It's nice for children to read also. I mean, maybe 12, 13 and up. Really good book. Anyway, the point of my telling that story is my daughter said to me, and she said, Ma, I feel so bad. Like I read about like there are people nowadays in developing countries who don't have food and they don't have beds, they don't have running water. Like I feel like such a brat. I have my own phone. I have like, a whole closet full of really nice clothes. And, and I turned to her and I was like, guilt won't do anything to help the poor. Gratitude will, right? Guilt just makes you feel bad for what you have. Gratitude takes a look at what we have and say, I was born into such gifts. What can I do to pay it forward? What can I do to share, to spread, to appreciate? And so I think what I struggled with personally about gratitude was that I was mixing it with guilt. I was like, well, I don't really deserve this, and that's not a fun place to be. Or feeling like beholden to God or to whoever gave me something in a way of like, oh, it's not mine, it's theirs, But when I learned to say gratitude is within myself, it's like, it's encouraging me to enjoy it. It's not about like feeling bad that like, oh, I'm not really supposed to have it, so I have to pretend that I don't have it. It's, I can like inhabit this space of abundance and really get to enjoy what I have. And there's a saying in our tradition, who is wealthy? The person who is happy within what he has. Right. And it's the kind of thing that every time I experience it a little differently and a little more deeply, because it's such a truism, and shifting from like noticing what I don't have and what's missing and what I'm frustrated about to like saying, hey, this is kind of cool. Instead of looking around and saying my office is so messy, I'm saying like, I have my own office. That's kind of neat.
Well, this is perspective. Right? This is very much the conversation that we had on Instagram. I'm a big believer in using perspective to change that narrative, right? And it's up to us. You can see the same story from two completely different points of view.
Totally.
And it's a matter of it's a matter of choice.
1,000%.
We have a few. Oh, she wants the name.
Oh, the name of the book. The book is called "I Will Always Write Back."
I will always write back.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not remembering the name of the author, but if you type into the search bar, I will always write back book, then you should find it.
That's should be an amazing book.
Story.
Yes. Okay, let's see. There's a few other long posts.
Okay.
Gift of life. Exactly. And I don't want to ignore anybody and any comments.
How do you remain positive and hopeful in expectation? Oh, that's a great question. Should I take that one? How do you remain positive and hopeful when your expectations are that a disaster might strike at any time? Okay. Expecting the worst in a very conscious way, I think, is a form of anxiety. So that's not what and I don't think what Mary was suggesting either. It's expecting that things will come up. So hoping, that's why if I only just expect the worst, but I don't also hope for the best, then I'm going to walk around in a state of fear all the time. And fear is not abundant. Fear is not helpful. So, expecting that, hey, the world malfunctions sometimes, not from God's perspective, but from ours, right? The fridge breaks, the kid falls, right? Like in big ways, like, illness and injury, and in small ways, like, hey, the delivery didn't show up, right? So if I expect that, if I imagine if I remember someone taught me this many years ago, and I always thought about, imagine if we got a postcard from God every morning saying, okay, here's your to-do list. Your kids are going to drive you crazy. Your husband's going to leave a mess in his breakfast spot. It's going to give a list of all the things that are going to piss you off today. And then, and here is your job. Your job is don't lose it. Just don't lose it. Don't let it shake you up. Just kind of like roll with the punches. Right? Can you imagine if we got that postcard? We'd be like, bring it on, I got this. Right? But because the postcard got lost in the mail, we have to send our own postcards and just sort of say, hey, I expect that there are going to be curveballs because it rains. Sometimes it just rains. So if I expect that sometimes it rains, I could be like, oh man, it rains. Now we can't do the thing. Or I could be like, it's raining and I'm disappointed that I can't do the thing, but I'm grateful that there's going to be water flowing through my pipes, and I'm grateful that the food is going to grow and the trees are going to be green. And, and I'm grateful that it doesn't rain forever.
I like, to me, this was a life changer for me, a game changer for me, the whole perspective. I really do a lot of, I call it those perspective games in my mind, because it's a choice. And I know that sometimes the story is not true, but it's not true when it was bad because I don't know.
I heard something amazing. The only difference between faith and fear is the vibration, right? Like, I didn't make this up. I've heard this places, but it's such a great, both faith and fear require us to look into the future, have no certainty about what it's going to be. But fear is like, oh no, what if a bad thing happens? And faith is like, hey, a really great thing could happen.
Wow. I love that.
Isn't that awesome?
That is so awesome. It comes from the same place, but they're polar opposites.
Yeah. In either case, we're acknowledging the fact that we don't have that crystal ball. We don't have a prophet to tell us exactly what's going to happen. And that we know that things almost they don't always go our way, right? There's even the most lucky person sometimes has to bump up against adversity, right? But to know, fear is like, oh no, what if it's going to happen? And faith is like, it's going to happen. Things will happen, but I have faith that we'll figure this out. There's another really cute book. It's called, my clients laugh like I'm the most annoying therapist because they walk out with a whole stack of you have to read these 12 books before next. It's by Marie Forleo called Everything is Figure Outable. It's really cute. You have it? Oh, we have the same taste in books. Did you read it? Is it
for sure, I read it one sitting.
One sitting. Yes. Those kinds of books. She writes in such a cute, conversational, playful style. Yes.
She's great.
She's great. She's so feel good.
Yeah. Here's what I wanted to leave everybody, because we're reaching at our 9:00 mark. If anybody has a question, I don't want to cheat anybody from an opportunity to ask any questions.
While we're looking at questions, I just wanted to invite your it always seems to work out no matter what. Wow, that's a really sunshiny person.
Marina is amazing. Talk about
resilient. Wow. Right.
Resilient.
That kind of attitude, it always seems to work out no matter what, is gold. It's gold. If you're wired that way, or you wired quite literally.
That's why she's here. Very thankful.
Oh, thanks, Pam.
Mhm.
Before I have to jump off, I just wanted to invite I hope it's okay if I mention this.
Yes.
I send out a free weekly newsletter. I actually call it my schmooze letter because I usually don't have news. I'm just schmoozing, just chatting and sharing thoughts. This one happens to be on thankfulness this week. But if you want, if you go on my website, elliechevelis.com, there's a link to sign up, and then you can get like free content about things like this on a weekly basis.
Fantastic. I'm going to sign up as soon as we hang up, and I'm going to put the link in the group.
Oh, thank you so much.
So they can have it easy.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to tell the entire group. I want to share that I wanted to bring Elisheva, especially in a day just before Thanksgiving, because I wanted to give you tools for the future to be able to be more grateful for what you already have, because we all have blessings in our lives. So if we have a discussion like this, what it's doing is that it's teaching us a new perspective, a new way how to look at life and find what to be grateful for. And I want to end with my sincere gratitude to Elisheva for coming. Really, when we talked in the Instagram, we had like one topic that we didn't totally agree, but I only loved you more for it because we are able to have this conversation. And it's okay to see things, not everything exactly the same. And there's going to be people in the group who may not agree with those concepts. That's okay. It's just ways. We're giving you new ways, new perspective. Each one takes what he can grab from it that is going to be good for them. And I'm so happy that you took from your precious time. I know you're so busy to give it to us. I see it as a gift. I'm very, very grateful eternally. And I hope that everybody loved it and enjoyed it, and stay in touch with Elisheva. I'm going to post all the information in the group.
Mary, thank you so much for having me. I don't see the names of the people here, but I thank you. And, it's been an honor to talk to you. And I also wish you a wonderful day tomorrow, a wonderful life. And it sounds like, Mary, really put together a beautiful community of like-minded people. I'm honored to be part of it.
And Elisheva, you were in the group. So
yes, I joined the group. Yes.
So when you go to the group and you go to
then I can see who's there. Yes.
You'll be able to see. And then if there's any more questions, because a lot of people.
Yeah, I'll try to get to them. Yeah, in the chat. Yeah.
And then you can answer any questions that people
I'll try. I actually have to go to a session now, so it will be the next hour and change, but maybe tomorrow. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Have a good night.
Mary.
Good night, everybody. Have a good Thanksgiving. We love you so much, and I'm grateful for you, for all of you who came tonight and every other day. Bye-bye, guys.
All the best. Bye.
Bye.